It's like an unavoidable fact of life. You have a calendar, you have days, you have time, and that's like that overview of that time available to train until you compete. Okay, so it's planning that out, and then there's a programming component, which is what you mentioned, which is like sets, reps, load, um, exercises, and all those things that fit in to a workout or fit into a training session. So that's the programming component. So we have planning from start to finish, A to Z, and then we have programming, which is filling in all of the details, writing actual workouts. That's periodization, and then it's like, how do you do that logically? Uh, to me, that's like broad overview. That's periodization as a concept. I don't know how that could ever be considered a myth. Like the fact you have to plan for a competition and you have to write workouts that make sense and lead to a peak. You're not going to start with the most intense work the farthest away and the most volume closest to. Like that really doesn't logically make any sense. If you peak and you hit PRs and that works for you, you figured out your own scheme of how you would periodize your training. But basically, there's this model of like, it's kind of a funnel. It's general and extensive, high volume to specific and lower volumes, higher intensities. And then you can fill in all the details and you can say, okay, this is like block style, and this is like weekly undulating programming and daily undulating programming. But one thing that helped me conceptualize it a bit, I think a bit better, and this was from Mike Zordos out of Florida Atlantic. He said you can periodize anything. You can periodize exercises, you can periodize like range of motion. All it means is you have a logical sequencing from one period of training to the next, to the next, to the next. So it is not your favorite flavor or brand or what an influencer is selling you. It is a planning component and a programming component. And I think for me, that's like the biggest breakdown. And when we think of development, it kind of follows that model. You just have, more general training for less developed athletes, more specific training for more developed athletes, and then more like competitive style training for the most advanced athletes.
Yeah.
And it just funnels that way.
Yeah.
So it funnels it funnels like a program, right?
I'm wondering if the people that are saying it's a myth, I wonder how many of those people are just still in like their first 2 years of training. So they might look at a program that's like, all right, they're doing 3 weeks and a deload or something, and they're like, what the hell? I've squat for the last 75 days and look how much progress I'm making. I don't need any of this periodization. I'm getting better at everything. Like
Yeah.
I could see how somebody just jumped in full go, because that's especially kids that are strong. I see that a lot. The ability to gain strength somehow equals knowledge because
Yeah.
what they're doing is working. But I talk about all the time, you probably could have a group of chimpanzees write in dirt a program and give it to new athletes, and it's gonna work because just getting into the weight room is gonna work. So I could see how really new lifters that are just in there doing wild ass shit, and they're like, dude, this I'm getting, like I said, went from 100 to 300 in a year. Like I can progress my squat 300 pounds a year with my stuff, and I'm not doing anything, So I'm hoping that's who is saying, and it's not really intelligent, but sometimes you hear some wild shit from people that are supposed to be the leaders in the sport.
I think that, like, talking about hearing some wild shit from people who are supposed to be leaders in the sport, I think one of the things that gets lost when we have these conversations is that there is no, when we had Tim Sukamel on, we talked for 15 minutes about what strength means, right? So like,
Yeah.
right, when
Yeah.
when we get into like what this language means, we all know that it's not perfect. We all know that volume and intensity and frequency aren't perfect descriptors of what it is that we're actually talking about. Same with periodization, like linear periodization. Like if you looked at the programming somebody does and you tried to like chart out their total weight and stuff, like you wouldn't ever come up with anything that was linear, most likely. And so like I think it's important to, that people don't get overly pedantic on like what the word is and focus on like what the practice is, right? Like what the actual implementation. That's where you get to be pedantic and fight over the X's and O's. But like sometimes people do get caught up on that. They're like, periodization is stupid because if you look at the way I periodize, I start super high volume and then just taper all the way to whatever my thing is, right? And so you might not see any periodization in that. You're like, hey, every week the weight goes up and the reps go down, for 6 months or whatever, right? And like that would, you might not see that as like chunks of training, right?
Yeah.
But you can definitely go and look at the research and talk to people who have been successful and see like, okay, well, this block, like this, if you have the whole world of training that you can do, this one's really good at making you stronger, and this one's really good at preparing you for a meet. This one's even better at making you stronger, but you lose fitness so fast that you can't do it for very long, like,
Right.
and so when you start looking at those as tools, then it definitely becomes periods. Like each one of those, I'm definitely working on a tool for each one of those blocks.
Yeah. Well, I think what this requires, we're going to get a little outside of the scope of just being a sport coach. It requires this ability to think abstractly, and I like this word. There's actually a really cool paper that uses it in the title, but to think like counterfactually of like alternative worlds that could exist. So when you write a program, you make great progress. You think like this is the program. I would say, could it be better and you get better results? Like you actually don't know that.
Right.
So this idea of like the program could be worse and it could be better, and we really don't have an understanding of what that could look like, and what you'll end up doing as a coach. Like with Danny, it's like you're making progress. I'm hands off. Like I'm gonna let the pan stay hot and you just cook on it. Once it goes too hot or once it goes too cold, we'll make an adjustment. We'll move the knobs. But until then, I just don't want to fuck with the flow of it, because we've got a nice little gradual gotta climb up, and you don't want to overshoot so fast that like then those movement if we're gonna call them like patterns become kind of clunky, and then you're loading them too heavy, so technique gets distorted. You see that happen, right? Where like you'll get to a quote unquote peaking block or like special prep block, and it's just so heavy. It's like you went from like really good movement when you were doing blocks of 5s and 8s, and then we do triples and you're tipping over a lot. And it's just like shit. You're not loading the movement how we want to load it. So like that higher intensity training is not being put in your legs, it's being put in your back. So you would then say like, okay, how can we obviate that? It's like maybe we do, a top set and down sets. We have some sort of like pyramid up, pyramid down, some sort of like wave loading. So you become more creative, but you say intensity is still the driver. We still need that stimulus. We just have to color it and make the cosmetic stuff a little bit different, to where, hey, say the average intensity is 80%, average relative intensity is 80%, and in one scenario it's 5 sets of 3, in another it's 80, 75, 80, 85, 80, 75. Those end up becoming the same thing, but one might allow you to have better technique. So. I think this ability as a coach to say like it's the program we're doing, but it's not the only program we could be doing, and like how do we refine it to make it better? That requires like knowing training theory, having a lot of experience, having good people to talk to like yourselves who can provide some insight and like help develop new ideas, and then some like hypotheses you could kind of test.